Sports Talk. I'm your host, David O. I'm here today with my co host.
D. Broussard.
Yes, sir, we in the building. And today's
Yes,
episode
sir.
is being presented to y'all today by two Louisiana boys. Y'all know how we get down. And, we're going to be talking about some NFL today. My boy D got the line up for us. So, I'm going to let him do his thing like he always do. And we're going to get straight into it.
Yeah. We're gonna dive straight into it. First one, Dio, is Pat Mahomes already the greatest quarterback ever? How you feel about that? What you think?
And I think he's a great quarterback. Definitely a great quarterback. But I wouldn't I wouldn't say he's the best ever, just because when you're comparing the best, it's kind of like you got different eras that each quarterback came up in, right? So like this generation, and that Patrick Mahomes is playing in, is kind of different from like when some of the other people who we consider some of the greats, to when they were playing. The game was different, the league was different. What I'm saying? Some of the rules were different. What I'm saying? So he's definitely one of the greats. He definitely has. I'm just looking over some of the notes here. He got like out of some of the in NFL history, he has the highest career passer rating and passing yards per game in NFL history. So that's a great stat to have. And then also he's reached the conference championship every year when he was a starter, and he's won three Super Bowls. And some experts is kind of saying that he may be the most talented quarterback ever to ever play the game, right? And he kind of redefined the position, for like quarterbacks. You know what I'm saying? To do some of the things that he does on the field is just amazing. You know what I'm saying? Like they kind of compare him to kind of like the Steph Curry of basketball, with just how he kind of redefined the position. But he had a lot of great quarterbacks that came before him. You know what I'm saying? Tom Brady, with seven Super Bowl rings. You know what I'm saying? You got Joe Montana with four Super Bowl rings. You know what I'm saying? You got Peyton Manning that started in the game, the big game, four times, won the Super Bowl two times. You got Ben Roethlisberger three times, made it to the game, two rings. So you got a lot of competition when it comes to the quarterback. To kind of compare him to be one of the greatest, he's definitely one of the greatest. But I don't know if I'm just ready to put him as the greatest, just because of just when you're comparing eras to eras, the game is just different. But I would definitely say he's the greatest we've seen in this era of football and generation, next to Tom Brady, being that Tom Brady got seven.
Right. Yeah. I gotta. Well, I ain't gonna say I kinda, but I definitely agree with you on that. I think Pat Mahomes is kind of like you said, redefining the game. You know, kind of being like the Steph Curry of the NFL. Now, Pat Mahomes, like you said, he already has three Super Bowl wins, five Super Bowl appearances. Um, and I think his skill set is definitely different than who's to say like a Tom Brady, being that Pat Mahomes can get outside the pocket and scramble. He can make spectacular plays with the football, the sidearm throws. Because, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
of course, Pat Mahomes was a baseball player. So, you know, I think he just kind of took a few things from the game of baseball and kind of added them to football, his football game. And, his skill set, like I said, is very different. But overall, I wouldn't say that he's the greatest. Not just yet. I feel like he has the potential to be maybe the greatest at some point because he's still relatively young and he's already been to five Super Bowls with three wins. Now, Tom Brady's resume is one that is superb, you know, having seven Super Bowl titles and also 10 Super Bowl appearances.
Mm-hmm.
But, like I said, with Pat Mahomes, he's still young. So I feel like he has a opportunity to become the greatest ever, but I mean that's still yet to be seen. Right now, I still feel like Tom Brady is still the GOAT right now.
Yeah. And two, like with Tom Brady is like, you know, he did it with two teams. You know what I'm
Mm,
saying? He did it with the Patriots and he did it with the Buccaneers. And that's kind of like with Peyton Manning too. You know, he did it with the Colts and then he did it with the Broncos. So, we don't know if Pat Mahomes is gonna stay with the Chiefs his whole career. You know,
mhm,
probably will. But, I would be interested to see if he do leave the Chiefs or get traded for whatever reason. You know what I'm saying? Whatever team he would go to in the future, if that was to happen, if he could do what Brady and Manny did with, winning a ring with another team that, he hadn't been with all his career. Because at this point in time, he knows the system. He knows, what goes on in Kansas City. But when those guys left to go to the Broncos and when they left to go to the Buccaneers, they had to learn whole new systems and was still able to pull out a championship. So that just goes to show you, the greatness of those players where they're able to adjust in new situations, take teams that they hadn't been with for very long, and when Tom Brady went to, I think he won in the first year he went with Tampa Bay, if I'm not mistaken, or
mhm.
maybe so. And I think with the Broncos, I don't know if Peyton did it the first year or not, but it just goes to show you that those guys was able to adjust and take totally new teams, totally new offensive schemes, and still make it to the big game and win. So I would be interested to see if Pat Mahomes can do that if he was able to go to a different team if he don't finish his career in Kansas City.
Yeah, yeah. I agree with that. I agree with that. That just kind of shows the eliteness of Peyton Manning and Tom Brady. Being able to go to two different franchise and like you said, learning the system and building a team and still being able to go back to the Super Bowl. That just shows the eliteness of those quarterbacks. But also, I feel like Pat Mahomes has an elite coach in uh, Andy Reid, and I'm curious to find out what's gonna happen with that situation because I mean Andy Reid is starting to get up there in age, and we really don't know how long he has left in the game to continue coaching. So I'm curious to find out, you know, what type of quarterback would Pat Mahomes be with a different coach as well, and also coming off of this injury that he just sustained, the torn ACL. Will we see the same Pat Mahomes as before, or will he play the pocket more and stop scrambling? I mean, we really don't know because he is going to be coming off an injury this season. But like I said, even with the Andy Reid situation, a lot of Pat Mahomes' success has um, came from that um, Andy Reid system. And like I always tell you, I'm always big on coaching. I always feel like systems and coaching matter. And I feel like Andy Reid, being a very good coach has really helped Pat Mahomes' career over the years as well. So, we'll see what happens with that.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that for sure because, you know, it's if you notice, like, you always got that coach quarterback combo. You know what I'm saying? Like with all of the guys, because like with Brady, he had Belichick. With Manny, he had Dungy,
Hmm.
or have what I'm saying?
Yeah, Tony Dungy.
Yeah, and even with
Hmm.
some of the other guys who we mentioned, they had that quarterback coach combo too. So definitely, I think Andy Reid was definitely beneficial to Pat Mahomes' career
Absolutely.
for sure. Yep.
Hmm. Yeah. Next up, should teams stop paying running backs big contracts? What you think, Dio?
I'm kind of torn in between the two, to be honest. I was doing some research on it, and you got the cases to where you can make the case for it, but then you also got the cases where you can make the cases against it, right?
Mhm.
And some of the things that I was reading was just that you can't really have a strong run game without having a good offensive line, right?
Mhm.
So it's like, because you can have the best highest paid running back in the league, but if the defense is always getting in the backfield and stopping the running back, he ain't gonna be that efficient. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? So I was kind of, like I said, was looking at some research and things, and it was just saying basically like running back performance really depends on the offensive line. You know what I'm saying? And so I think before investing into a running back, a one man position, you, teams need to really invest in the offensive line, because by investing in the offensive line, not only can now they can still maybe not have to get the highest paid, or the running back that's looking for the most money. Now they can maybe go with a lower cost running back and still be just as effective as if they had that high paying running back, because now you got the line that can give that running back some protection to and open up the holes for him to be able to get where he needs to go and pick up those yards. And not only will the offensive line benefit the running back, but it's also going to benefit your quarterback. You know
Mhm.
what I'm saying? By letting your quarterback have time to be able to make his throws and make his reads and do his check downs and things like that. So should the teams continue to pay these running backs big contracts? I think they need to be paid what they're worth, but
Mhm.
kind of like overpaying them just because they might be one of the stronger backs in the league, and that's the guy you're going after. I don't think no team should overpay for a running back. I think pay them what they're worth. Maybe try to see what kind of negotiations you can do. That way you can get that running back some help on the offensive line. But some of the other reasons why I think that they shouldn't pay him that much either, is because running backs, they don't really last long in the league because of the
Mhm.
physicality that they got to go through. You know what I'm saying? They always getting hit. They
Mhm.
get a lot of injuries happen. And just some things I was looking at, they were saying like a lot of the running backs usually only perform well on their rookie deal. They got 4 years in the league, and then you know what I'm saying. When that second contract come around, it's like that second contract sometimes be a gamble for these teams. Because the performance goes down. The injuries happen. You don't know if they're gonna be the same back that they was coming into the league when they was making a name for themselves. So it goes back to saying that you can get maybe a lower paying running back, a lower cost running back, build your offensive line, and maybe still get the same production out of
Mhm.
that lower cost running back than the high paid one, or the superstar one. Because just some examples that he was throwing out there, they had Tom Gurley, $60 million contract with the Rams.
Mhm.
You had Ezekiel Elliott with
Mhm.
$90 million Cowboy extension. And then you had Le'Veon Bell, $52 million deal with the Jets. And signing all of those guys to those deals didn't get none of those teams a championship. So for some of those reasons is why you can make the case against not paying them that money, where you should invest in your line, or maybe invest in your quarterback, your wide receivers. You know what I'm saying? Maybe your defense, like your defensive ends, your edge rushers, your cornerbacks, instead of paying all that money to one guy, spread some of that money out to where you can build an actual team. Because that's
Mhm.
what you're gonna need at the end of the day to win the championship. Is one guy ain't gonna win it all for you. So I want them to get paid what they worth, but I don't want them to be overpaid. I think spread the money around, build a team. That's what I
Mhm.
think.
That's a good point. That's a good point. I'm kind of like you. I'm kind of in between. Um, and I think teams do feel that running backs are more replaceable, and you know um, and they don't have to pay them big money to keep them. You know, because you got guys that's coming into the league each and every year. And younger backs that's coming into the league, and like you said, as far as statistically, it shows that running backs don't really last that long in the league because they take so many hits, so much pounding, things of that nature. So it's kind of like, do I want to spend big money on a running back that's only gonna, give me a good 4 or 5 years when I can just go out and get a guy that's coming fresh out of college, that's gonna be looking to prove a point in the
Mm-hmm.
league, and he gonna run the ball even harder because he's trying to make his mark in the league, and that's also gonna save me costs, like you said, to where I can spend that money on building a team. But then also, I do feel like sometimes you have to pay for the more elite running backs, like Jonathan Taylor. We saw him go through what he went through with the Colts, holding out and trying to get a deal with the Colts. But ultimately, Jonathan Taylor has proven that, excuse me, that he's a significant piece to the offense because he continues to be productive even on that big deal. And then you look at a guy like Kenneth Walker, a guy who you spoke highly about, during our previous episodes where he was the Super Bowl MVP and the Seahawks let him go to Kansas City.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, the last time I looked at the roster, it didn't really look like they had uh, a running back that was really notable or
Yeah, true.
credible, I would say. Now, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, the draft is coming up, so maybe they can find a guy that can replace him. But I mean, when you look at a guy that was the Super Bowl MVP and you let him go, it's kind of like you can't really. I don't know if you're gonna be able to replace what that guy brought to the team because he was a huge part of the Seahawks' success this season. And then also you look at a guy like a Saquon Barkley, like Saquon Barkley in the NY Jets. I mean, not just the Giants. When he left the Giants, you could really see that he was a huge part of that offense, and he
Mm-hmm.
ended up winning a Super Bowl title. So it's just, I feel like guys like that, even Derrick Henry, guys like that, that's elite running backs that like these are guys that they're gonna produce every single year. I kind of feel like they should get paid. You know what I'm saying? But then, like you said, I also kind of understand the way the business works, and spending that type of money on a running back is not always a good investment when you can invest in building a line, building a defense, things of that nature. So, like I said, I'm kind of torn in between the two, to be honest.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I'm glad you brought up all of those guys' names because I was gonna, mention them as well. Kenneth Walker,
Mm-hmm.
Saquon Barkley and Derrick Henry, and that just
Mm-hmm.
goes to show you that, like, these guys are replaceable. Like, because Henry, he was with the Titans for a long time, and that's where he kind of built his name, and Barkley with the Giants, and Kenneth Walker though, he was like a second string or something like that. If I, remembering correctly, when he was with the Seahawks, like he wasn't a top pick or nothing like that. He was kind of
Mm-hmm.
like, I think second round, if I remember correctly. But he had a breakout season, and
Mm-hmm.
for them to just let him go when he was such a big part of that Super Bowl run, it just goes to show you that these running backs are not being looked at as a premium position no more. Like they
Mm-hmm.
got the quarterbacks is the people that's getting the money,
Mm-hmm.
and they had another stat that I was looking at, and it was saying that like some of the top offensive linemen right now is getting bigger contracts than the top running backs. So it
Mm-hmm.
just goes back to show you that you're gonna need that line to protect and to block and to to open up those holes for those guys. But then also that gives your quarterback more time, which gets your receivers more time, and and so it starts with the line, on both sides of the ball because you got to be able to protect, but you also got to be able to get after, the
Mm-hmm.
other teams too on defense. So I think like again, running backs need to get paid, but at the same time, let's not overpay them. Let's pay them what they worth. Let's work out a deal. Let's build a team.
Mm. I agree. I agree. Now, Is the NFL becoming too soft? What you think about that, Dio?
And it's kind of like, some people might say it's becoming soft, you know, because of some of the rule changes, some of the penalties that's occurring, with the helmet to helmet, contact, with some of like the hip drop tackling and things like that. Collarbone, like when he grabbed the collarbone and stuff like that. All of those things.
Mm-hmm.
Back in the day, and that goes back to say like how I was saying earlier, like how football back in the day and nowadays is kind of two totally different eras now. And it just seems like the referees are like favoritism with the
Mm-hmm.
offense. Like they're trying to
Mm-hmm.
protect the offense a lot. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Trying to protect the quarterback. They're trying to protect the wide receivers. You know what I'm saying? It's like the defense is really getting penalized for making these big hits. You know what I'm saying? When they running that top speed, trying to catch these guys or trying to make the tackle. So it's like, what do you want these guys to do? It's kind of hard to stop, when you got a train coming at you, you know what I'm saying? It's kind of hard
Mm-hmm.
to stop and these guys delivering these licks. But I understand that, with a lot of the research that then came out, with CTE and concussions and things like that, how now they need to start taking more precaution to protect these players
Mm-hmm.
and brain injuries and stuff like that. That way some of these guys can have longer careers and
Mm-hmm.
not be, have shorter careers due to injury and things like that. But most definitely, I feel like the league is definitely looking at it from a protection
Mm-hmm.
standpoint. I wouldn't say it's really getting soft. I just think that it's more of just for protection. With some of the rule changes and some of the penalties, and with the referees trying to protect, like I said, like the offensive positions. And then I was also reading something that said that like in the collective bargaining agreement, they
Mm-hmm.
actually like reduce like physicality and like physical contact at practice. So like
Mm-hmm.
guys can't even when they practicing, they can't really go all out and get game day ready if you want to kind of look at it like that. You know what I'm saying? It's
Mm-hmm.
kind of more of just kind of going through the flow and going through the techniques
Mm-hmm.
instead of the physicality. So if you want to look at it like that way, then yes, the NFL is becoming a little softer, but at the same time, it's more for protection than anything. And flag football is actually getting very popular in the United States. So like even the NFL is kind of back in flag football now. And I was just reading a report that they got a whole like they didn't partner with somebody to come up with like a whole flag football league that's gonna be in sponsorship with the NFL. So it's like the game is just changing, and it's really more for protection reasons, but also with the NFL kind of back in flag football, and I think they even got an Olympics for it now. You can
Mm-hmm.
kind of say that it's really is kind of toning down and getting soft, and then they doing like those 7-on-7 games and stuff like that with the flag football. So you could kind of say it's getting softer from what we're used to seeing,
Mm-hmm.
growing up watching the game, because they really didn't have all of this, back in the day. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
back in the day, they really didn't even have pads and helmets. You know what I'm saying? They had that little thing they put on their head. You know what I'm saying? So I mean, dog, it was
Yeah.
wow back then. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? So now they got, you know, so the game is just evolving, and it's just for protection. But yeah, it was wild back then, man.
Mm-hmm.
They only had that like they had a full face mask. They had that one little bar coming
Right.
that kick a punter helmet. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
man,
That's a fact.
I would definitely say it is kind of, I say it's more for protection, not getting soft. I think it's more protection.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think I, to me, I feel like football has always been a violent sport, and it's kind of hard to you know make it different, especially like with pads and stuff like that, because it's like you said, when guys running full speed and things of that nature, it's kind of hard to you know control your body, as you're trying to uh make a hit on a player. Like it's kind of hard to do that, when you running at full speed, so And I kind of feel what you're saying about, them kind of trying to protect the offense a little bit more, protecting the quarterback and things of that nature. But I feel like currently it's kind of hard to play defense. If you're a defensive player, like if you a DB or on the defensive line, like it's hard to play defense, man, because you know you have to tackle a certain way, and then if you land a certain way, you get penalized, and the team get penalized, and you lose yardage and things of that nature. So I wouldn't say that it's getting too soft, but I do feel like maybe the NFL should continue um advancing the equipment a little bit, which I know they have as far as like more padding with the helmets and things of that nature to kind of protect, the concussions and stuff like that. But I just feel like they should just continue working on the equipment and just try to, you know, make some better equipment to where it doesn't have to be so I don't want to say soft, but like 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 the guy to where the defensive player can play defense and he can hit and it won't be as damaging to the player. You know what I'm saying? Like that's how I feel. Like I feel like because it's hard to get into football or watch football when it's not being played the way that you're used of it being played. It's kind of hard to watch it. Like I still watch it, but a lot of times it's just kind of like the penalties and things of that nature is just kind of like, man, like what is that? Like, and it's kind of like the same thing with the NBA as well. Though it's like the NBA is more offensive driven. You see a lot of 3-point shots and things of that nature. Like defense is not really the main focus anymore in basketball, I feel, especially in the NBA. And I think it's kind of starting to become the same way in the NFL as well. It's just not as, focused on defense. And like I said, I just think the NFL need to continue working on the equipment and try to make some better equipment to where you know, these guys can actually play football and it doesn't have to be as damaging to the body over time. But as I said in the beginning, football has always been a violent sport. So it's just like when you sign up to play football, it's like you already know what you're getting into. You're going to be taking a lot of hits, a lot of punishment. Like that's just what it is, in my opinion.
Yeah, and like you say too, like both leagues really not really focusing on defense, they more going to offense, and kind of going back to the running back thing real quick. Um, a lot of the NFL and a lot of the teams now is more passing game. You really
Hmm.
don't see a lot of the big running plays and stuff like that.
True.
And if you listen to a lot of coaches, they'll tell you, "Oh, we got to get the passing game going in order to get the running game going, or we got
Hmm.
get the run game going to get the passing game is going to open it up." So it's
Hmm.
kind of like, what I'm saying. But if you notice, they may run the ball on first down because you still got two more plays to go. But if you don't get no yardage on that first down, that next play ain't gonna be no running play. It's gonna be a
Hmm.
pass play. You know what I'm saying? So and then both leagues, they wanting to get higher scoring because man, if you look at
Hmm.
some of these NBA games, bro, 120, 130, 140 points. Come on, man. They
Right.
wasn't doing that back in the day. And then even
Hmm.
with football now, fans want to see big plays and they want to see points scored. The
Hmm.
game not interesting if at the end of four quarters it was 3-0, only one team made a field goal.
Right.
Like, you know what I'm saying? So you gotta find a way to put the points up, and maybe that's why some of the rule changes is happening too. And they're trying to make the games go at a faster pace, and we'll kind
True.
of get into that on the next thing because I got some stuff like about Brock, about our next topic.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, we can dive into the next topic. Is Brock Purdy overrated? What you think, Dio?
With Brock Purdy, I don't really watch a lot of the 49ers, you know what I'm saying? Because, I don't like them. My brother liked the 49ers and the Patriots, and I'm a Saints fan.
Uh,
But just from what I've seen him do, I definitely would say that he's definitely I wouldn't say he's overrated. I would say he's underrated, to be honest with
mhm,
you, because for the last 2 seasons, he's put up numbers to kind of be like top five quarterback in the league. You know what I'm
mm,
saying? And he's being compared to like a great player. You know what I'm saying? From what I was reviewing, they kind of was saying that he's kind of like a Drew Brees, how he's just he's more like he's a system quarterback, but kind of not a system quarterback. So it's kind of like he does Kyle Shanahan's offense very well. They got a good thing going over there, but
mhm,
just with him being able to stay calm in the pocket, with him being able to get some of the plays off when it's certain, when the play may be breaking down. You know what I'm saying? He's still able to keep his calmness and still able to make a play. You know what I mean? He got some elite efficiency as well. Right now, he's actually one of the stats I was looking at. He leads quarterbacks in yards per attempt.
mhm,
So, and like I say, he got good system execution with what they got going on in San Francisco. And like I say, he kind of stays calm under pressure. He's poised under pressure. He got good decision making abilities. And when he's breaking down, he still has pretty accurate throws from what I see. So I would say that he's kind of underrated instead of overrated. And then also too, he was the last pick in the 2022 draft, but even being the last pick in the 2022 draft, he's proven that he can be a leader to his team, and his peers look up to him, and that's why for these last couple of years, San Francisco been in the contention, for playoff, and also going to championship games or getting close to the championship games. So I would definitely say Brock Purdy is underrated.
mm. That's a good point. I don't. I mean, I kind of agree with you a little bit on that. I don't really think that he's overrated. Um, I feel like the most overrated quarterback in the NFL, in my opinion, is Tua Tagovailoa. I really feel like he's super overrated. So I wouldn't say that Brock Purdy is overrated. I feel like you said he's underrated, but I also feel like too, um, Kyle Shanahan's system is very quarterback friendly, and I feel like with his system, I wouldn't say any quarterback could be successful in his system, but I would kind of say like the same thing you said as far as Brock Purdy being able to play in that system and be able to be efficient and effective in that system because even if it wasn't him, it's not really a guarantee that even though Kyle Shanahan has a quarterback friendly system, it's not really a guarantee that if they were to replace him, you would still have the same results without him. Because as I recall correctly, I think Brock Purdy came in as a starter for somebody else. I
Hmm.
can't quite remember
He was
who was the
replacing that dude from the Patriots, with Jimmy Garoppolo, I think.
Yes, that's
Yeah,
true. That's true.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He came in to replace Jimmy Garoppolo. So
yeah.
I mean, like I said, I feel you. I think that he's really underrated, and you know, with him being surrounded around a lot of talent definitely helps because it is a lot of talent on that 49ers team. You have Kittle, you have Christian McCaffrey. So
Hmm.
I mean, it's a lot of Trent. I think it's Trent Williams, the offensive lineman. Um, you have a lot of talent on that 49ers team as well. Good coaching staff, good coaching system. So I just feel like, you know, being in that situation has helped him a lot, and he's been able to flourish, playing that quarterback position, running the offense correctly. And like you said, just being consistent, getting the team a leader, you know, getting that team to multiple postseason appearances. And I mean, even like last year, I mean, I don't even think people even considered the 49ers to even make like a run like they did last season, especially after losing a lot of guys, no Debo Samuel. Obviously he was traded to Washington, and then, Kittle was out. They lost a lot of good players. I think the Wagner guy on defense, he was like huge for them last year. They lost him too. So nobody was really expecting the 49ers to even get as far as they did last season. So yeah, I gotta agree with you. I think Brock Purdy is uh underrated rather than overrated.
Yeah, for sure. Because like I said, like when he replaced Jimmy, he came in and I mean, they never looked back. Like
That's true.
they didn't go look for, they didn't go next season and look for a veteran quarterback to bring in, or they didn't try to go, find nobody. It was like, this is our guy,
Right.
what I'm saying. So, and the 49ers had confidence in him after him coming in and replacing Jimmy, with him being like, I think he was a rookie at the time, and with
Yeah, I
him
think he
coming
was.
in and doing what he did as a rookie, and then
Hmm.
then like I said, last pick of the draft in 2022, to just be able to do what he did, that goes to show. And then he's still very young, so he got a long time to continue to develop and get his game together. And with, like you mentioned, all of the talent that they have in San Francisco, I'm definitely looking for the 49ers to be a contender, in the coming years to come for sure.
Hmm.
Yep.
Now let me ask you a question while we on this topic. Do you feel like he's played well enough to be able to um get a huge deal contract?
I mean, I think he's played well enough to where he's deserving of a good contract, because coming from, like, just coming in as a replacement, and then
Right.
being able to get the team into contention, as you mentioned, playoff contention within the last couple of years, and just having one of the he leads quarterbacks right now in yards per attempt. So I mean, with his efficiency and with him being able to control the team and be a great leader and things like that, I think he has all of the characteristics of what some of the other quarterbacks are getting paid for. Like I'm not saying he should get some of the big contracts like Lamar Jackson and Jalen Hurts and Dak Prescott got. You know what I'm saying? Just because I mean, Jalen Hurts, he won a Super Bowl. Lamar Jackson, he be in MVP conversations, and I mean, Dak Prescott, I'm not even sure why he got the big contract that he did, but I definitely think Jerry Jones just like paying people money when he feels like you got the potential, because he paid what's that boy? He had all the faith in the world, and what's that boy name? I mean, he a commentator now. What's his name?
Tony Romo.
Yeah, Romo.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
he had lots of faith
A
in
lot of
Romo.
faith in him.
So you know what I'm saying. I think he's definitely deserving of a contract. I
Hmm.
think he's definitely well deserving of it.
Yeah, I don't know. I just felt like I needed to ask that question because we talked about, his efficiency and just, him being underrated. So it just made me think to myself, because right now I don't really know his current contract situation. I think he might be still on his rookie deal, to be honest.
Hmm.
Because I hadn't, heard anything about him getting an extension or nothing like that. So
Yeah.
I think he may be still on his rookie deal. And I was just curious to see, like, is he really worth, like that, like you said, like that Lamar Jackson, Pat Mahomes, Dak Prescott type of money, even though I mean, to me, I think he's been more productive than a Dak Prescott, in my
Hmm.
opinion, you
Yeah.
know. So I don't know, like, is he worth that type of money, or like, because I mean, they're gonna have to pay him at some point because you can pretty much say he's proven at this point.
Yeah. And since we kind of talking about that, I got a question for you
Hmm.
with the Cleveland Browns.
Mm,
I heard on a radio talk show today that Cleveland Browns they're gonna be having quarterback competition to see who's gonna be their starter, but
mm,
they're kind of mentioning that Deshaun Watson might be the guy that they start the season with. I
mm,
mean, with him coming off an injury and with him coming back, and even being traded from, the Texans to the Browns and then going on injury and, just kind of being, and then with everything that happened with his, legal troubles. I
mm.
mean, do you think that the Browns should, you know, go with Deshaun Watson, or do you think that, since the end of the season, it was kind of leaning more towards, Sanders. Should they kind of, develop and let Sanders, continue to kind of, get his feet wet, or do you think they need to go back to a more veteran quarterback like Deshaun Watson?
Man, I'm gonna be honest. I really don't think so. I think right now, Shador Sanders has shown that he's an elite quarterback, and he's only going to continue to get better. I mean, I like Deshaun Watson as a player. Of course, watching him all the years playing for the Texans, I like him. I feel like he's a good quarterback, but I feel like he hasn't really shown that he was worth the amount of money that they paid him to go to Cleveland. Even healthy, he didn't really show much that he can really be an elite quarterback in Cleveland. And I mean, bringing him back, I mean, I don't really know what is that gonna do because I mean, the guy's coming off of two torn Achilles. This was the second time that he tore his Achilles in the same foot. So I just feel like I think the Cleveland Browns they just need to bite the bullet. They overpaid the guy. I think they just need to bite the bullet. Because all of his money on his contract was fully guaranteed. They paid him 230 million, fully guaranteed. So I think they just gonna have to bite the bullet on it. But I feel like Shador Sanders should be the future of the Cleveland Browns. Like I just feel like out of all the years, all as a Cleveland Brown fan, not myself, but just for the fans in general, like all the quarterbacks that it went through all the years, I just feel like they finally have a guy that has shown that he can be productive in Cleveland. And I just think they need to just run with Shador, man. You know, I just think they gotta bite the bullet on Deshaun Watson. I really do. I just feel like he's not gonna come back and really be much better than what he was before he got injured. Because now he's coming off a second Achilles tear. And Achilles tear, that's a real tough injury to come back from, let alone come back from twice. Not
Yeah,
once, but twice. So I just don't think he's gonna be the same Deshaun Watson. I just really don't. And I mean, you got a young kid, Shador Sanders, man. He's proven, he showed that he can play, he can lead the offense. The team believe in him. You got the momentum, new coach. Man, you gotta run with Shador, in my opinion.
yep, yep. I'm with that. I'm with that too. Shout out to
Yeah,
Shador, man. Hopefully,
yeah. Shout out.
hopefully he can win the, win the starting position. With the competition that they're gonna have, and take the Browns to where the Browns need to be, get the fans what they want, and give and with him, he brings that energy. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? He brings that energy, and I think that fan base definitely need that energy, and it's good for the NFL. It's good for promotion. It's good for marketing. So
Content. Make sure you like and subscribe to the channel.
yeah,
Talk how we talk.
yeah. Talk how
Sponsored
we
by two
talk.
Louisiana boys.
Yeah.
And we gonna just keep on bringing y'all these episodes, man. We back. As long as y'all continue to like and subscribe, man, we gonna keep bringing these episodes to y'all, man. So yeah, man. Appreciate y'all for tuning in.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Talk how we talk sports talk, man. Till next time, y'all enjoy the rest of y'all day, evening, night, wherever y'all tuning in from. We appreciate y'all, and make sure y'all like, comment, and subscribe.
Yes, sir.
Yep, yep. We out.
We out.